We are finally here as the Kansas City Chiefs have kicked off training camp as the quarterbacks and rookies reported today. We will discuss the comments that Coach Reid and Patrick Mahomes had regarding injuries, and also we'll discuss if the Kansas City Chiefs should really be concerned about the wide receiver position headed into 2023. But before we do kick off that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. It took long enough, but we are finally here. The Kansas City Chiefs have kicked off training camp. Well, a portion of it. The quarterbacks and rookies have reported today, and what we will go over is some of the comments that Coach Reid had and that Patrick Mahomes had in their first press conference kicking off the 2023 training camp. And let's focus on Patrick Mahomes a little bit because it'll be short, sweet, and simple, but it'll be something that all of Chiefs Kingdom will be focusing on, and it's that ankle. It's the ankle that got hurt in the AFC divisional game against the Jacksonville Jaguars and lingered against the Cincinnati Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. Well, Patrick Mahomes gave us an update, and he said he is basically 100% and ready to go into 2023. And that's no surprise whatsoever. I had a feeling he would be close, if not fully healthy, going into training camp, and that is great news because he is him. He is going to be ready to attack next year and have this team going and trying to repeat, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs move as Patrick Mahomes does move as well. And he said one thing that the Kansas City Chiefs and him are going to focus on specifically in training camp is basically improving the core of guys they had. Last year, they worked with a lot of young guys, and that is the same moving on to next year. But all these guys are going to be moving into year two. We know a lot of things have been focused on the wide receiver room, running back room, and even on the offensive line. So Mahomes wants to see the growth and the maturity going into this year so that this team can repeat going into 2023. Now that we switch gears a little bit and go on to what Andy Reid had to say in his press conference, he gave us a little injury update as well. And he mentioned that Deshaun Warren would start training camp on the PUP, which is kind of surprising, but not really, and it's nothing really too significant at this point because I even question what does that mean, that going on PUP right now. It just means he'll be on PUP throughout the training camp and preseason, but the Kansas City Chiefs could activate him before the regular season. It just depends on how that injury is looking. Now, if he is put on PUP before the regular season, he will miss the first 6 weeks, but we'll have to see how that all plays out. And also another player Coach Reid mentioned was Isaiah Pacheco, which will basically play a wait and see. He didn't mention much, but it sounded like that the Kansas City Chiefs could lean on putting Isaiah Pacheco on PUP to start training camp. As I mentioned, that's just through training camp, and they'll see how he progresses and how healthy he can get to the start of regular season. Is it a cause for concern? To me, it kind of is a little bit because I thought Isaiah Pacheco may be healthier and may be ready for training camp, but that doesn't seem like it could be the case. We'll have to see once the veterans report and what the team does do with Isaiah Pacheco moving forward. But the running back position is going to be something to have your eyes glued on, and if Isaiah Pacheco is unhealthy moving forward, because right now they have Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and of course the unsung hero, the undrafted kid, Deneric Prince. But that is a slim room itself. So if Isaiah Pacheco isn't healthy, do the Kansas City Chiefs have to dip back into the free agency pool and look for a veteran running back like a Dalvin Cook, maybe a former face in Kareem Hunt? We'll just have to see how it all unfolds, but a little bit of surprising news on the Isaiah Pacheco front. Now we are all caught up on the news and notes from day one of the Kansas City Chiefs training camp from the quarterbacks and the rookies reporting and updated on Coach Reid and Mahomes' press conference. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the fun, the thing that got Chiefs Kingdom a little riled up yesterday. And it was the fact that DeAndre Hopkins was going to sign with the Tennessee Titans, a 2-year deal, $32 million. And it was kind of surprising because Chiefs Kingdom went in various different ways that I didn't expect whatsoever. It was like they were banking that DeAndre Hopkins was going to be a Kansas City Chief and he was going to be wide receiver number one. Now that that is not the case, it seems to be a cause for concern for Chiefs Kingdom because they don't know who they can trust on this roster and they don't feel like they got a good core moving forward. And that is far Far from the case. Again, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, this is not a bad core by any stretch of the imagination. They're just unproven. And I would like to go, I'm probably going to have a lot of hot takes in this part, so we're going to kick it off right here. And I'd probably go the extra mile saying either Darius Tony or Sky Moore could outperform DeAndre Hopkins with the Tennessee Titans next year. I don't think that is a far stretch by any means. DeAndre Hopkins, yes, he is still an elite talent. I'm not taking that away from him. But given the situation and given these guys' situation as well and who they are, I feel like they're put in prime position to succeed next year. And that's why I'm excited to see this core moving into next year, because it is a young, talented group who needs to prove themselves. And that's what I'm excited about, because every single guy on this wide receiver core has question marks. They need to answer some questions, and I'm ready to see if they can answer that bell. And when you look and zone in on two guys like Darius Tony and Sky Moore, they're going to be the first two names in the wide receiver room that are going to be called upon. So I'm excited for that. But also, I wanted to touch on this a little bit as well, and that's Patrick Mahomes and the relationship that he has with this wide receiving core, to where I don't think he needs a legit wide receiver number one. Now, would it be welcomed? Would it be a luxury? Of course. Yeah, we would have loved to have DeAndre Hopkins. But looking back into last year, some may argue, and I may as well, that last year may have been Patrick Mahomes' best year. Now, yes, he has had better statistical years, but as an all-around quarterback, Patrick Mahomes looked his best. And he didn't have a wide receiver number one. And I feel like in years past, the comfortability with Coach Reid and with Patrick Mahomes, when they had Tyreek Hill, cost them some games and in some situations. And you've seen it too, where Mahomes would force some plays or where Reid would trust too much of Tyreek Hill. Again, no discredit to him whatsoever, but too many plays drawn up around him to where it limits the offense. Last year, we saw the offense so more expanded to where everybody was getting a piece and everybody was eating this offense. And I think that was the best offense we have seen from the Kansas City Chiefs, and I want to see it evolve and improve and get better and better. That's why I'm excited when you hear guys like Kadarius Tony, Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Rashee Rice, Richie James, Justin Watson, Justin Ross. There is so much talent there that the same thing can be repeated from last year as well. This team doesn't need a wide receiver number one, because I feel like at the end of the day, it might actually hurt them. And you got your wide receiver number one and tight end number one and Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is going to be your outright producer on the offense. And I feel like I mentioned in the comments yesterday too as well, one of these guys, and specifically it's going to be Kadarius Tony or Sky Moore, is going to be a top 15 wide receiver in the league next year. It's going to be hot take, and I'm going to book that as well. And honestly, if you ask me, I think it's an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to lean towards Sky Moore. Something just tells me, and I don't know if I'm like biased, whatever you may see, fan favorite, whatever the case may be. But Sky Moore is that type of receiver to me where I feel like he's going to be that reliable guy for Patrick Mahomes moving into next year. I feel like he's going to hit the ground running. I just loved what I've seen from him in the offseason. Not to say I don't love what I've seen from everyone else. Kadarius Tony has looked good all the way down to the fan favorite Justin Ross. Anyone can produce on this offense, but when I focus on a guy like Sky Moore, he's a guy who I see can get 6 to 8 catches a game and just produce and eat in the slot. And I think that is something that will help this offense out tremendously. And I think we've seen it even last year as well, where the Kansas City Chiefs, the way this offense moves is through their slot receivers. They did it with Juju last year. Not comparing the games, because when people see Juju, they try to compare Rashee Rice and they want to fit him in on that role, which I do believe Rashee Rice, he will eat in his rookie year to where I think he will outproduce Sky Moore. Now, is that saying a lot? No. But I think that's huge to mark as well, because it seems like we all forget about Rashee Rice a little bit, because he was just drafted recently, and now when you talk about bringing in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, or we need more wide receivers, we just drafted one. We actually drafted 2 in back-to-back years as well. The Kansas City Chiefs are addressing the position. It's young. Give it a chance. And the reason I say Chiefs Kingdom has been getting kind of chaotic because DeAndre Hopkins went in a different direction is because I'm seeing posts like that to where the Kansas City Chiefs have an unproven core, or that they're not putting weapons in front to help Mahomes succeed. That is not the case. And one, they are putting weapons in front of Mahomes because they sign guys like Richie James, Justin Watson. May not be fan favorites, but may be the right core guys. And then they also drafted guys like Rashee Rice and Sky Moore. It seems like we're just giving an out because we don't know what these guys can be, but we know what DeAndre Hopkins is. And at the end of the day, we know what DeAndre Hopkins was. We don't know what he would have been in this offense. That's another key piece to it. Yes, he could have been an elite wide receiver, but so can Sky Moore. So can Darius Tony. Anything can happen. These dudes can produce, and don't be surprised when they do, because at the end of the day, if Darius Tony can stay healthy, which is the main question mark around him, what's stopping him from being a top 15 wide receiver? And if Sky Moore, which looks like it, has had his nose in the playbook and has been training all offseason and can take that next step, what's stopping him from being a top 15 wide receiver too? And the main thing that keeps it all together is Patrick Mahomes. He's going to find his guy. They are going to eat, and they are going to be successful. So do I really believe there should be a cause for concern? Not at this moment. Now, things can change week in and week out. Now that we're in training camp, of course, injuries can happen. Things like that can happen. And then when you get into week 1, week 2, you start focusing on productions. You see what happens there. But shoot, we didn't even get that great of production last year. Juju, he had a little less than 1,000 yards, missed a few games, and that was your leading receiver. After that, you had MVS, I think, over 500 yards. Nothing was too crazy there. And I think your unsung hero going into next year, and a guy a lot of people think Chiefs Kingdom won't make the roster, is Richie James. Richie James, what he did last year in the New York Giants offense with Daniel Jones, had over 600 yards, I think 6 touchdowns, something like that. He was eating in that Giants offense where they said Giants wide receivers don't eat in. And now look, the Kansas City Chiefs got 2 of those wide receivers, and Darius Tony and Richie James. But Richie James is someone the Kansas City Chiefs have had their eyes on for a while. So for him not to make the roster means he's not doing something right in camp or in preseason. He's making the roster. He's going to make it because he helps the special teams, and I think he's going to be your guy that's going to fill that McCole Hardman role. I think, honestly, succeed and play better than Hardman did in that role. Again, no knock to Hardman whatsoever, but something tells me Richie James is going to be that secret weapon where we're going to be excited every Sunday watching him make that 1 or 2 plays to help the Kansas City Chiefs score a touchdown. With that, Chiefs Kingdom, I'm going to close out this video. As I mentioned, I don't believe there's a cause for concern in this wide receiver room, but you let me know. Should the Kansas City Chiefs really be focused in on a wide receiver number 1, or should we just move forward? I believe we should just move forward. With that, please do subscribe to the channel. If you did like this video, please leave that big thumbs up. I'm checking out. Y'all take care. Peace.